Hi, everybody. Welcome back to episode 3 of Do You Really Mean That? My name is Olivia, and I'm here with a guest co-host today because Chris is out of town in New York City for work. So I am joined by Chris Bertman. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, Chris is out of town, so you have Chris. I'm Chris Bertman. I'm a writer for timcast.com.
And then, of course, we're also joined by our producer, Derek.
Howdy, howdy.
And we got a lot to talk about today, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it with our first topic. JustPearlyThings, or Pearl Davis, has caused quite some drama on Twitter today specifically, but over the last few days as well. This is someone that I've wanted to talk about for quite some time, and I haven't been able to in this context, but I saw some of her tweets and her Twitter battles today, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity for us to go ahead and talk about it. So if you don't know who she is, Pearl Davis is I guess she has like a dating show or something, talks about relationships and dating. She's a volleyball player, and she moved to England last year, 2 years ago or something, to pursue volleyball. Now she does a podcast, and she'll be moving back to the United States soon, from what I understand. She likes to pride herself on being red-pilled and saying that she is trad or whatever, but a lot of criticism comes from that she doesn't really practice what she preaches. So I don't know if I'd call it pleasure, but I spoke to Pearl on Tuesday night. If you guys don't watch Timcast IRL, they do a member segment where members can call in. I was chosen to call in. I confronted her on some of the things that she had said previously about cheating, and thinking that essentially saying that it is worth saving the marriage, but that the woman should just kind of submit to the man. And so if he were to cheat, she should put her family above all else. My problem is that if the woman's going to put the family above all else and her emotions, the man should be doing the same and just maybe not go sleep with another woman. That's kind of where I was coming from in my criticism. She called the premise of my question stupid, and so that was great. But then rambled on for 2 minutes and didn't give me a chance to explain. The show had already gone late. I didn't want to interrupt. And then at the very end, Tim Pool says, "Did we answer your question?" And I just went, "Kinda, yeah," because I didn't know what else to say. And I sounded so defeated. Everyone was talking about how I just kind of was like, "Yeah, thanks." People were like, "Oh, you sounded so defeated." I was like, it was not worth the battle. But I will say that Seamus Coughlin did come in and try to kind of facilitate a little bit of pushback, but I didn't get to, and she cut me off when I tried. So that happened on Tuesday. So I was pleasantly surprised when I woke up and saw that she was facing backlash on Twitter today. She, again, like I said, she parrots these kind of red pill talking points, but also doesn't really live by them, and so I have a problem with that kind of hypocrisy. I just don't think it's okay to say one thing but do something entirely different. And she also doesn't really how do I want to say it? She puts out a lot of stuff, but then can't really defend her points. She did an interview with Nick Fuentes, who I'm not a big fan of, but he is someone that I would interview, just to get that back and forth. But he did an interview with her. She posted it on Rumble, got pushback, deleted it, and then re-uploaded it because she's like, "I didn't realize who he was," and everyone knows who Nick Fuentes is. So I don't buy that excuse at all. But during that entire interview, she was asking "Oh, well, I don't know what that means." So basically trying to learn from Nick Fuentes about hot button issues. Not the best person maybe in her mind, because she's part of that manosphere kind of grift, I guess, because she's definitely grifting at this point. So we're gonna pull up this first tweet from Aiden Mattis of the Lore Lodge, where he responded to a tweet that she said, "Let me ask my wife," with the puke emoji, basically saying that men shouldn't have to ask their wives, in these situations, whatever situation she's specifically talking about. If a man were to say, "Let me ask my wife," she thinks that's gross. He said, "I hope no young women are following Pearl and thinking she's a role model. This is garbage. As a man, respecting your wife's opinion isn't just admirable, it's required. Ephesians 5:28, Pearl. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies." So that, I agree with Aiden there, I think, because she does claim to be that trad, Catholic, conservative kind of, I think she talks a lot about that, but then goes back to say oh, wives should be, I think she said 20/80 with their husbands or something. She said that 50-50 marriages are going to fail. So if you're giving 50-50 in a marriage, it'll probably fail, and that's just people trying to brainwash you. And Chris, you're married, so I'm gonna ask, how is what do you think about that?
So, I to a certain extent, she's on to something, but also completely way off track. The idea that a marriage, it should be 50-50 is like, ideally, yeah, 50-50. Well, not even 50-50, everybody's putting in 100%. But I mean, there's going to be times where one person's just got more of the load to carry at times. And I mean, I haven't been married that long. I'm coming up on 4 years this year, but we've been together over a decade now. Yeah, it's like, it's not always fun. It is work sometimes. So she's on to that where it's like, sometimes it is 80-20, sometimes it's 60-40.
But it shouldn't have to be that way. Like, it's not like a standard, it's always going to be 80%, the man is the head of the household, but it's not always going to be, like, in a partnership, you have to be 50-50 sometimes, at least when it comes to, like, input on things. And she's basically saying that she used the analogy of the man being the boss and the wife being the secretary.
Typically, yeah, that, and like, even after COVID, when my wife lost like 2 or 3 of her, I think she lost all of her jobs at the time. We fell into the gender stereotype roles hardcore, and it worked. It made sense. It was, I go out, I make the money, I come home, she takes care of the house, and it, I didn't understand why everybody was so upset with, gendered roles, because it's just, that's the way that you survive. But yeah, I mean, even when she says that a man should be in charge, like, good luck having a dude tell his wife whatever's going to happen all the time. Like, that marriage isn't going to work out. There has to be communication. There has to be mutual respect. But I also find it funny. She's 26 or so, and she's single.
27. Yeah, she's not married. She's never been married. She actually started her whole, like, internet fame because her parents are rich and she grew up in a big mansion, and so she'd post videos about the big mansion. She comes from a family of parents that are still together, and she's got a lot of siblings, and then she dated, I don't know if you know who this is, but Angry Reactions from TikTok. He went kind of viral in 2020, 2021. And she dated him on and off, really kind of bad relationship, but that's how she started to get more popular. And I'm going to do a whole segment by myself at some point here, a video. I have communicated with one of her old friends saying she didn't used to be this, like, down on women.
Oh, wow.
She kind of changed really fast. Like, she used to be, like, they were best friends from when they were kids. And then she started to change into this, like, kind of, I don't want to say far right, but she kind of took these ideals of the far right, saying, like, women must always submit to the man, blah, blah, blah. Like, those kind of parroted super red pill. And she says red pill a lot, but it's funny because I think she could use a red pill sometimes. But she takes that and tries to kind of grift off that. She does a lot of those, like, clickbait videos. She calls all of these, like, drama YouTube channels, she calls them fake news drama channels, like, stuff like that, where it's like she kind of takes from different people on the right, and uses those different things. And then, like she takes the Donald Trump of, like, the fake news extremist whatever, applies it, and will put, like, then she takes the Ben Shapiro, like, destroys, people on panel or something. So I've noticed she takes a lot from other people, but isn't very original in her own thoughts.
So I will say, like, would you guys take health advice from somebody who's morbidly overweight? Would you? Would you really? Do they really know what they're talking about? And I'm not talking about someone who's. I'm talking about, like, massive. Okay, same idea. Are you going to take advice from somebody who's dirt poor about getting rich? Like, why would I take advice from a girl who's 26? She's not married. But she's going to tell you that she knows the way. Like, I'm not even, like, trying to say, like, take advice from me, because, like, I don't want to give advice. I'll give it if somebody asks, but, like, go to somebody who is in a marriage. Go to somebody who does have a strong relationship.
Or a marriage counselor, like someone that specializes in these things, like someone who's a professional in this, someone who understands, and I understand what she's saying, but it's how she's saying it and the message she's trying to portray. Like, if she was just saying that, like, in a marriage, traditionally, the men are dominant, yes, that's accurate. But if she's going to say it should always be the man is dominant, that's just not true. And, like, life will throw circumstances at you to make that not true. Like you were saying, like, you guys did fall into those kind of gender stereotypes. But, like, if you're going to go through something that's, devastating for you, your wife might have to step up, take care of things for a little bit while you, recover, get back to yourself, and then go on from there. I mean, like, I'm just looking at it too from a point of, like, I had divorced parents and I was raised by my dad primarily, and she talks a lot about, like, men never get custody, men this, like, they never get custody of the kids, and that can be true, but she's not looking at a lot of different circumstances, and she's not considering, like, she talks a lot about no-fault divorce, she talks about that kind of thing. She's not looking at, like, fault divorce, like, actual fault divorce. And so I think she just doesn't know what she's talking about because she's lived this kind of perfect, and I hate the word privileged, but it is a very privileged life. She's, lived off of her daddy's money. He owned a big business and big mansion, and wow, you got famous because people thought your house was cool. Okay, like, it's hard to take advice from someone who's had a picture perfect life and never really gone through anything hard. Or, like, I've seen the court systems with my parents and stuff. I've seen how that stuff plays out, and, like, my mom was primarily at fault for the divorce, and so my dad got custody of us, and it's not that my mom was a bad person or anything, she was wonderful, but, like, there are situations where that happens, and I feel like she just neglects those cases and tries to point out the ones where, like, oh, well, the mom did this and the court, just gave the kids to her. Well, sometimes they can't prove it. Sometimes they, and this touches on, I don't know if you saw Lauren Southern posted today about her husband left her and she got divorced. Yeah. She posted a long Twitter thing today and a video, and she talks about how her husband left, and now she's a single mom, and so she has custody of the kid. But the dad gave up. He was like, and I'm not going to sit here and talk ill of her ex-husband, but from what her post said, he up and left her with the kid. Wow. And so I think she's not looking at those situations where dads might just be like, I'm done with this, and, desert the family. And moms have done it too, but statistically, dads have done it more, unfortunately. So that's, I feel like those stories kind of go together. Another tweet that she had, Derek, if you can pull up this next one. She said, men are so brainwashed that their default is to ask their wife. Imagine that in a work setting wouldn't happen. I mean, what are you asking your wife, I guess, is the question. Like, you asking, hey, honey, what do you want for dinner? Because that's a terrible option if you're, trying to ask a woman what she wants for dinner. Don't do it. Just, like, make an executive decision at that point. Because I can tell you as a woman, if someone says, what do you want for dinner? My answer is always, I don't know. 100% of the time. It's no fail. Unless I'm really craving something that day, the answer is going to be, I don't know. And so I'm just saying that because, like, if that's the question, if that's, asking, whatever, then okay. Like, I get it. That might be something where you have to be like, we're getting this or we're making this or whatever. But there's certain things, big choices in life. Or maybe if you're going out to do something, just hey, honey, I'm going to go out with my friends, or I'm thinking about going out with my friends this weekend. Did you have anything planned? Is that good with you? Like, just running it by them and just being, like, courteous. Like, you're not asking for permission. You're kind of, it's just like an informal way of being like, I'm going to do this. Unless there's a reason I shouldn't, or I can't. Unless there's something I don't know about. So. Yeah.
No, 100%. Like, the joke back in the day when, like, old coworkers I had, or just friends when I was dating my wife, or even the girls I was dating before her, the joke would always be like, oh, you got to ask permission. And it was like, no, it was just like a respect, just like, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing. Are you cool with it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was there anything you wanted to do instead?
And I feel like that's so much more courteous. It's so much more courteous, especially like I would not want my partner to go and like make a huge financial decision and then come back and be like, I got a new mattress and a new couch, and I'm just like, what the hell, like. You didn't ask me about it? Like, and I think that's what she is saying, is that those things can happen and the woman should submit, because she said things in the past that give me that vibe of like women should just kind of get over it if it's like what the man wants to do, because it's a man's world. And I'm not going to be a feminist here, but I do think that in a relationship there is at least that mutual respect where you at least say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, I know we can afford it. How do you feel about that? Not about just spending money you don't have. It's more about like just run it by somebody, especially if it's going to affect their life as well. Just be like, hey, this will affect you. Like,
I noticed she's doing this thing that a lot of people tend to do when they talk about the gender stereotype, and they conflate power and authority over somebody with like a responsibility. So
right.
when I say that like I'm in charge of my household, it doesn't mean that I have authority over my wife. It doesn't mean I make decisions and she just does what I say no matter what. There might be situations.
She would let you do that.
Yeah. I mean, there might be situations where she's just gonna trust me, let me take the wheel, and whatever decision I make is like, all right, I'm just doing it. But I have a responsibility to her in that whatever decisions that get made ultimately comes down on me if we sink or swim. Does that make sense?
Right. That does make sense. Yeah. And then this last tweet that I had ready, if you can get that one pulled up too, Derek, she's saying, let me ask my husband, with the heart and like the prayer emoji and stuff, basically saying like, yes, do that. Again, in a relationship, there's a mutual respect. It shouldn't be, you can say, let me ask my husband, but you can't be like, oh, let me ask my wife. No, it should be, let me just, run it by. Let me run it by my husband. Let me run it by my wife. Let me, I feel like that's different. It's not an ask. It's more of a, let me run this by them, make sure it's good. Because, then it's going to affect them. They'll be home alone or taking care of this thing or whatever if I'm going out and doing something. So I'm going to run it by them and then get back to you. I feel like that's normal. I mean, maybe I don't I'm not married, so I can't speak to that as much. But to me, that seems healthy in a relationship to be able to ask those questions to your significant other.
It's a partnership. It's like a captain, co-captain. So what that means is like not the authority, not the power, but like one person has more responsibility over the other.
Yeah.
I hate when people conflate this kind of shit because they've never been in a marriage. They've probably never been in a long-term relationship, and if they were, it probably wasn't a good one. So.
Well, like I said, I saw her on. I mean, it was again online relationship, but like it was a very public and messy breakup. It was on and off again. It wasn't a healthy relationship. She likes to fat shame people, and I'm just pointing this out because it's the hypocrisy, like kind of that same pattern. She fat shames. I mean, everybody. I've seen it online a lot. Her ex-boyfriend, the TikToker, he's a bigger guy. He's overweight for sure, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just putting it out. Thick boy nation, that's right. And again, and like I wouldn't normally like sit here and be like, oh, like he's over, but like the fact that she's pointing out like, oh, I just think that fat people are gross, but your ex-boyfriend, like you literally are like grifting at this point. You're taking points that you probably don't understand and then saying them and hoping because you're a woman you're going to get away with them. And I know plenty of people like left and right that have problems with her. It's not just leftists and feminists. Like a lot of people have problems with her. A lot of people push back. I know the quartering, yes, he likes to, kind of instigate that online drama, but he pushed back a little bit. He's married, so if it came between the two of them, I think I would probably be more like, okay, well, like Jeremy's married. He's at least he's got that. She is a single, unmarried, like never been married, doesn't live by what she, like, I have a problem with hypocrisy at the end of the day, and that's my biggest problem with Prose. I think she's toxic for young women, and she's the Andrew Tate girl, if people don't know. You'll know when I say the Andrew Tate girl who I'm talking about. She basically sims for Andrew Tate, like, hard, but, like, to the point where it's like, girl, we get it, he's not going to date you, like, calm down. But that's where I have a problem with her. So those are kind of my thoughts on the whole Pearl situation. I think that she's not someone that young girls should be looking up to, and I think she's creating a very like toxic idea of what women on the right look like because she gathered such a big following. People are like, oh, they just submit to men. We're not all like that. Some of us do push back a lot, or whatever. Like I said, there's instances, and I agree with Chris here. There's instances where you're gonna have to as a man, you're going to have to make those decisions, and then for the good of your household. But I, again, don't agree with 90% of what she says, but she claims to be like a red pill. She told, Amala Aknabi, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but from PragerU.
I think it's Epinobi. I think the K is silent. Epinobi.
Epinobi. Well, Amala,
Yeah.
Amala, PragerU.
Mhm.
She did a live stream a few weeks ago where Pearl then, because Pearl was in the news for whatever reason, and she kind of slid into the chat during this live show saying, "Let me come red pill you in LA." And I was like, "You really think that you need to red pill?" I mean, she is a former leftist. Like, talk about getting red pilled. Like, she did that already. So, like, again, she uses that kind of grift to be like, she's like, "Let me on your show so that I can red pill you," and it's like. She's like, and she even said my view or my name gets views, so we're gonna test that theory with this video. But we'll test that one out.
Yeah.
But just that conceited,
Yeah.
like my name gets views. Like, okay, sweetie, it's not for the reasons you think. It's just not.
So,
Like,
full context, like I didn't know who she was before the Timcast episode. I didn't really watch it. I skimmed through it, and then I heard from what people were saying, and it was kind of like a 50-50 split, where all the women were typically saying she was horrible. All the men typically were saying, yeah, she's got some points.
and it seemed like some men were like, yeah, like she has points here but not here. She has points here but not here. And that's kind of where I am, where I'm like, I think she's trying to say something, but she's not saying that. Yeah, she needs to stop. She needs to stop talking. I guess that sounds really rude, but like she'll say something, you're like, yeah, and then she keeps going, and you're like, wait, no, like that's wrong. That's not what I thought you meant. So like, she'll start really strong, and then just slowly just start. And so again, she's very I just, again, hypocritical is the best way I can describe her. And when I talked to her the other night, and she was like, well, the premise of your question is kind of stupid. I was like, okay, and you're not even gonna let me respond to you? Like, come on, like, I don't think she's ever been cheated on. I don't think she's ever had to go through anything hard, really, in her life. And she'll probably say she has gone through hard things, but relative to other people, I just don't see that as a reality. And so it's really hard to, kind of feel bad for saying things like this about her, because she just doesn't seem to have a real understanding on, like, the emotions behind that and how that might affect family. So we have an article from Timcast News written by Cassandra MacDonald saying that a Matt Walsh producer got approved for removing his testicles in a 22-minute video call. I watched a Matt Walsh video on this last night, but he has a thread where he talks about it, and I'd encourage you to watch his video on it to get a full context. But he had a producer who called, what was this place called? Trying to remember exactly what it's called. Greg Ray? I'm sorry, I don't know if it's Ree or Ray, but Greg got on the phone with a clinic saying, I used to have gender dysphoria, but it's kind of gone away, and like kind of wish-washy, and was like super unsure about it. He got approved for transition surgery, and he was saying he was on a Plume clinic, there we go, saying that he was on a medication but couldn't pronounce the medication name, like he mispronounced it in the video call on purpose, and talks about how he got diagnosed, and there's other places, and Matt Walsh will touch on this, where they will write letters so that people just, can get the surgeries. They're really pushing it to the point where they're like, pay us and we'll write you whatever you want. So
yeah.
It's very reminiscent of that, like, college admissions scandal where it was like, pay us and we'll do what you want. It's like very reminiscent of that, except this is much worse, because you're literally ruining your body. And obviously he's not gender dysphoric, and he's, as far as we know, he doesn't suffer from that. He's never claimed to, except in this video call. But basically was kind of like joking around and like basically saying, like, I don't think I'm gender dysphoric. On his intake paper, he said he doesn't suffer from gender dysphoria. But they still gave him a paper saying, go neuter yourself, boy. Like, here you go. Like, here's the papers. Like, he's not a dog. He's not a cat. He's not an animal that can chop the balls off. Like,
yeah,
it's a whole human being. That's a whole life that you could ruin. And as a male, how do you feel about this, Chris? I'm just curious how that, thinking about that, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel pain. I have like a ghost pain.
Yeah.
I have to agree. And I'm gonna put my own point out here real quick. I think the biggest reason why a lot of this stuff is being pushed, and this is from stuff that I've read online, it's a lot of the stuff can be paid through by insurance. A lot of insurance companies are paying this, so pharmaceutical companies really want to push this because insurance is paying for it. So they're getting a lot of money from a lot of these gender dysphoric people who they may or may not be, but like these medications and these surgeries cost a lot of money, and insurance is paying for it. So these pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money from a lot of these uh, procedures. So.
Yeah, and that your point actually reminds me too. As I was watching the video yesterday, Matt Walsh does touch on that, and he says that that it's required by most, if not all, insurance companies to have a gender dysphoria diagnosis and like a letter to get approved and to get it paid for. So they're basically, I mean, I don't love all insurance companies, of course, but they're scamming the insurance companies, and this money that they're paying that could go to someone who needs, I don't know, whatever treatment. I mean, they're just using the insurance company to pay for it, and then the pharmaceutical industry gets a lifelong patient. Of course they're happy about that. And I'm not talking about, your local pharmacist on it, whatever. I mean, like big pharma, I'm not going to be like, oh, go yell at your pharmacist. Like they generally don't, they just, validate all the prescriptions and everything. And then, so for them, they could really care about this, but big pharma is like, okay, you got approved. Oh, okay. Well, here's your medication. Oh, well, guess what? You need to take this every single day for the rest of your life. So, it's so twisted that that's what they're doing. And everyone's not everyone, but the left essentially is defending it, saying like, well, someone suffers from gender dysphoria. Well, they said they did, but where's your proof? He literally said in the phone call that he did, but doesn't anymore. And then couldn't pronounce his medication. And she's like, oh, it's a tough one to pronounce or something like that. Like, kind of made a joke about it. And it's like, I would know the medications I'm on if that were me. At least, kind of how to say them with something like that.
One last thing about that medication, a lot of them are on, like Lupron, which if you guys watch the Matt Walsh, What is a Woman, they go into it. But Lupron, and what he said is one, it's what they use for a lot of pedophiles as
Castration.
Yeah, chemical castration. But it's also been linked to cancer too. Like it's a very carcinogenic drug. So I mean, on top of that, they're gonna have a cancer patient 10, 15 years down the road too. A lot of these people who are on these drugs, like we're gonna see a lot of people, probably class action lawsuits and everything else, in like 10 to 15 years, because we're all I mean, everyone's the guinea pig right now for a lot of this stuff. And
yeah, and I know Chloe Cole, who was a minor when she went through surgery, she's suing the hospital that did her surgery and like the companies that allowed it to happen.
Yeah,
I know
she's suing Kaiser.
Yeah.
What's her name? Hermie Dillon's representing her.
Oh, nice. That's great representation. So yeah, I know she's one of the first people to really like break out and do that, and it's so monumental because she was a minor when it happened. I think she was 16 or something when she went through her surgery. She got her breast removed at 16 or something, like crazy, ridiculous like that. And she regrets it now, and now she identifies as a female, and she was born a female. And so, this is one of those things where you see the regret later, and they were just saying, well, we just write these, and Matt Walsh also had a Twitter thread on it with like 20 tweets, if you guys want to check that out as well, where he shows all the evidence. So, this wasn't just something like Daily Wire would not post a story like this without thoroughly going through the steps to get the proof they needed. So that's important to remember, is that this is like not an over-exaggeration. It's just they went the route that they were told to do. I mean, I forget who it was, but somebody, I think it was also at Daily Wire, called and like could make an appointment with Planned Parenthood to get put on testosterone or estrogen or something like that. It was some kind of transitioning. This was like a year ago now, so it was a while ago, but someone called and basically was able to get an appointment within 5-10 minutes on the phone. And then there's people who could go into the gender clinic and get, a prescription after one visit without a psychologist, just whoever's there that day working at Planned Parenthood.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but about 9 months ago now or so, it was the Daily Wire. I'm pretty sure it was Matt Walsh too that they broke the story, kind of what Derek was saying about the insurance companies. And you understand the concept of the military-industrial complex, right? You start the war because you're selling the weapons, and then it's a cycle. You make the money.
It's the same thing. It's just the medical
medical
industrial
industrial complex.
complex.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
guess.
You diagnose them with the fake disease, that you sell them the surgery, which you need to keep up on, and the boom, 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 and it's like you've got a customer their whole life.
And then the more they do
But
that, the more people will think, well, I'm like that, and then they're going to do it. And so they gather more customers as time goes on. And no one wants to be a patient for life. No one wants that.
Yeah.
Like, God,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to deal with doctors the rest of my life. I mean, I will if I have to, but like, I wouldn't go out of my way to be like, yeah, let me come in for an appointment every month because I don't know, wanted to play with the truck one day when I was a kid or something. Like, that's just not, and the parents making those decisions, oh my God.
That's if you have an actual problem. That's not if the person on TikTok told you have a problem. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
But so what the thread that he had basically uncovered was exactly what he was saying, that the insurance companies, like the hospital, he had somebody on camera that was basically saying, yes, it's like these hospitals get funded just solely off of these gender affirming surgeries and the therapy and the this and the that, and yeah, it's like it's totally tied into the insurance companies.
And it's so bad. It's just, I
Mhm.
mean, it's hard to have any respect for these companies that do these things and
Mhm.
perpetrate these lies essentially, and the parents that put their kids on transition, hormones from the age of 5, I don't know, whatever, whenever they're
Yeah.
apparently allowed to, identify their sexuality, which is just bizarre to me that we're not like thinking about that, I don't know, logically. And yeah, and I'll have more kind of updates on that topic specifically in a few weeks here. I'm not going to disclose anything other than we'll have more to say on it so that for not just my safety, but the safety of others at the event as well. I wouldn't want anybody to get hurt at any capacity.
Yeah.
So it's a 22-minute phone call. I mean, that's like me calling my dad to tell him how my day was. Like, that just baffles me that, like, I sometimes call my dad and we'll talk for 20 minutes and okay, like it's amazing to me that in that time someone could get diagnosed with gender dysphoria and be told like, hey, you're cleared for this surgery with no
Yeah.
proof of a past, like doctor
Mhm.
visit, a counselor. It's not like he went to a counselor growing up and he got to 18, and this is where like I'm not of the, they can never do it, but like you look at Blair White and she suffered for a while. She lost her father, I think at like 18, 19, something like that. And held off her transition because her mother was like, she says I don't want my mother to mourn the loss of her husband and her son. So I waited until, and that's someone who really suffered. You can tell this person went through years and years growing up, but then was so selfless and holding off that care for themselves. So you're telling me this is life affirming, whatever the heck they say, you need it or you're gonna die kind of thing, like they're gonna kill themselves. I think someone who went through that big of a loss in their family and still managed to put their needs on hold for other people or to make sure that it was, the right thing to do and the timing is right, that's more noble in my opinion than someone who just wants to fit in and wants to, they think it's the cool thing to do. I have a big problem with that, and that's why Blair White's one of the only people in that community that I can truly respect. Which I wouldn't even put her in that community. To be fair, she doesn't put herself in that community, but
But
it's
if I'm not mistaken, Blair didn't get surgery for
not
anything.
bottom
I mean, she got,
surgery,
yeah, the facial feminizing surgery. Yeah, not the
not the reproductives, not the
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, and Blair has talked about this openly, saying, I don't even know if I'm going to. Um, it's just not. I'm happy with how I am now, and so I'm not sure if I want to go down that path. But very open about it and admits that like, I present this way and I'm happy with it, but I'm also a male. She admits it,
Hmm.
and I use she with Blair because there's no way you can look at Blair and tell me that's a man. Just if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So, one of the rare cases where you're like, okay, I would have never guessed, like ever, never.
Before I knew who Blair was, I sincerely thought
Blair
Blair
was
was a
a
woman.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and so that's one of the cases where I would say like I'm not going to say he because I can't with Blair. It's just one of those people that for me would be very difficult to lump into that group because Blair, speaks against that entire ideology and says like this was my path, but it's a very rare path. You shouldn't have to, not everyone should go down this, especially children, and so I respect that a lot. Okay, so for our next segment, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to kind of introduce it and talk about it because we're basing it off an article that he wrote. So, Derek, if we can get that pulled up, and then Chris, if you want to go ahead and talk about it a little bit.
So, similar to all the corporations and the this and the that, celebrating Pride Month, which doesn't feel as much of a month anymore, more of a season. The Girl Scouts of America has unveiled, it was what was the terminology? Was it fun patch? A Pride fun patch?
Fun-themed patch or something.
Yeah, it's like a fun-themed Pride patch. And, I was a Boy Scout. Olivia, you said you were a Girl Scout. I know that they offer merit badges, and I don't know if this is...
So many badges.
Oh, yeah, I had a ton.
Not to brag, but I had a lot of patches, okay?
I had like that little, I don't know if you've seen like Star Trek or something where they have the little sash.
Yeah.
It was just full of badges.
Yeah, I had a whole like thing full of them, and there wasn't even all of them were on there. I just like put as many as I could, and I still had like another like 50 or 60 of them because I was an overachiever as a child. I know, that's why no one likes me. Continue.
So I don't know, based off the document that I was able to find on this stuff, I don't know if this is a temporary thing that they can only earn during Pride Month. It's kind of the way it made it sound. But basically, you've got, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding this because I was never a Girl Scout. You have your younger girls, which are like what? Brownie, Junior?
Daisies, Brownies, Juniors, and then the last one I can never remember.
But that's like the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like how the Boy Scouts had like the Cubs and stuff, and you grow into like the different roles.
Eggers, Weeblos, Scout.
Yeah.
Right. So you basically had the younger group. Yeah. Young kids. That's the point.
Yeah.
The younger group, which was like the first 2 or 3, and then the older group. The younger group, you have to complete, I think it was 3 out of like a whole list of different activities you could do. One was including go to a Pride celebration. Another one was like researching, I believe,
like a notable
LGBT,
figure, right?
A notable figure, and then like drawing a painting of them, or like reading about the Stonewall riots. And it's just like, why do kids need to understand this stuff? Even if they did understand this stuff, why wouldn't it be their parents tell them about this kind of stuff? Right. I could more so understand older kids, the older girls, learning about this. Maybe, why do you need a 5-year-old to go to a Pride celebration?
And I find it interesting that the patch that you can see there says I'm a Girl Scout, but in like smaller letters on the bottom says LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Like they kind of know. They're kind of like, we'll make it littler. But it's like, you're teaching them that being a Girl Scout is a part of Pride, essentially, by saying like, oh, I'm proud to be a Girl Scout. And as a former Girl Scout, I was proud to be a Girl Scout until I saw this. But when I was a Girl Scout, now I really hope none of these photos exist. And if my father has one, he will find it and he will send it to me, and then I will be forced to share it. So I hope there's no picture of this, but when I was a Girl Scout, I had to dress up like a Samoa cookie and go out and dance to get people to come in and buy Girl Scout cookies at the grocery store. When we had like a booth to get them to, like, when people would like leave, we'd be like, can you buy them? Well, they used to have these like costumes of the cookies that you could dress up in, and you'd like dance around, try to get people like to get their attention, kind of like the sign waivers, but just a cookie. Right. There's a video somewhere of me, or a picture somewhere of me wearing the Samoa one, I believe. It's very vivid. I don't know why. I think I was traumatized, but it was something that I remember very vividly. This moment, I remember who I was with too. We both had to wear it at one point, and that's what we did. It was stupid, but it was fun, right? Like, I always sold the most cookies in my troop, not gonna lie, because both my parents would just go and like shill it to everybody they knew. They were like, oh, you like cookies? Cool. My daughter's a Girl Scout and she's gonna cry if you don't, do this. And so
that was you. You were getting all the awards because your parents were selling it for you.
I don't think so. But I always sold the most cookies. My dad, like, we were very involved. My dad was like, you know, they're like the cookie mom that, I don't know if you guys would know this actually, but the one that gathers them all from like the distribution center, the cookies for the
Oh,
Girl
sure,
Scouts
yeah.
to give to their families. My dad was the cookie dad. Okay. We would roll up in our giant, like, I think it was like a Nissan Quest or something at like 9 p.m., grab 100 boxes or something of these cookies, right? So that everyone got their cookies and then they'd come to our house and grab them. And so we were highly involved. And so that's why this story specifically caught my attention because that was me, you know, and in the grand scheme of things, not that long ago compared to when Girl Scouts started. And they have like pride statements on their website, and there's something so, you know, they say Happy Pride Month, being true to yourself is what makes you beautiful, so celebrate everything that makes you you. The sentiment's fine in and of itself to instill, I guess, what am I trying to say, like encourage the kids to be themselves so that they don't feel insecure. But the fact that it's coming from a place of like your sexuality, like that's like, don't be ashamed to like nerdy things. That's what I would take from that as a child. I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of nerdy and like these things, but I shouldn't be ashamed of that. Whereas now they're like, do you like girls? Don't be ashamed. And it's like, why is that like, you know, I maybe had a crush on some guy in my class, like some boy in my class or whatever, but it was never like the way they push it now where it's so sexualized to the point where like you have to think about these things. It wasn't like you see a boy in the playground you think is cute. No, oh my god, you have a crush on him for like a week. It's like it's not like that anymore because they changed it. And it's so scary to see that happening as someone who, one, wants to have kids, and two, was a kid, you know, not too long ago. I mean, not that old. And so seeing that is, and the ways that they can get it, going to a pride event. I mean, like, first of all, please don't bring your kids to pride events. Most of them involve, you know, openly sexual behavior that kids shouldn't be exposed to. It's one thing to accidentally walk in on mom and dad. It's another to be brought to an event to see that. So I've seen people conflate those, and it makes me mad. It's not the same thing. Right. There's a reason that kids cover their eyes and run out of the room when they see that. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Is there's a reason kids will run out of the room if they see that. So I'm just like reading over the last of the article now, where you say that senior girls must complete 6 of the activities to get that badge. 6. First of all, as like a middle school, high schooler, I'm assuming that they have the brownies and the daisies together, and the juniors and then the cadets or whatever the heck they're called. Did I have that? I don't know if I even had that much time. And like, what parent is going to be like, let's get you a pride badge, honey? Like, that's what scares me, is that this is available and that they're going to do that. Like, pledge to wear purple on October 21st. So this isn't even like, I mean, it is a Pride Month thing, but like they're still trying to say like it's not a stand against just bullying, it's a stand against, because that's what they're saying, you know, Spirit Day awareness for people that are bullied, but not people that are bullied, specifically LGBTQ plus youth who are bullied. Can't we just do it for everyone that's bullied? Like,
it extends past June. You know, it's year round. So what's the point of calling it Pride Month?
Well, we've seen, I know you probably saw this on Twitter too, the list of like 100-something days that you have awareness or pride or remembrance or something like that. A day of silence, a day of whatever.
It's
like
145 days.
100. I thought it was 124. Jesus.
Nope,
so
145
like
days.
Almost half the year.
It is half the year.
Oh my
gosh!
It's
like, almost like you're throwing. It's half the year is dedicated just to this one group of people.
To sexuality.
Yes.
This is oversaturation. Okay.
Yes, and I even said something. It is, and I said, you know, why doesn't the military get this? Why don't other, you know, groups get this? Because we're not catered. I'm not a vet or anything, but we don't cater to people who actually risk their lives for our country. And people were arguing with me on Juneteenth, saying it was a military holiday. I don't think the Army delivering a letter makes it inherently a military holiday, but that's just me, you know, because that's kind of what happened. Is like the last Union soldiers left the South or something. It's not a military holiday, okay? Like, I don't consider it that, and Juneteenth is supposed to celebrate emancipation. We should call it Emancipation Day, call it what it is. No one's going to be against that. I'm just telling you right now, every single one of us here can tell you that if it was called Emancipation Day, we'd all be supporting it. We would all, you know, at the very least, I'd be like, What a great day. Like, what a way to celebrate that. That's a milestone in our history. That's important. But Juneteenth turns into a celebration. It was created, like, it's kind of like Kwanzaa, where it's created. And then they, like, wanted to have something to... And I understand having things like Black History Month. I mean, I think that's changed a lot to what it is now, much like Pride Month. I think in and of itself, having that awareness is very important. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that Black people have never, in the history of America, been oppressed. I'm not stupid. I know that they were. But to then bring it to find more things to be oppressed about and say, well, now we're going to celebrate our entire history. Now we have Asian Pacific Islander awareness. We have, I mean, everything other than like white people, right? Like everything else is, and God forbid we had a white history. Oh my gosh, if we had a white history month, can you imagine the backlash that would cause? Or like the heterosexual awareness day, even like a day, even like a minute. Like if they were like this 1 minute on this one day, they freak out. They'd be like, we can't dedicate anything to it. 60 seconds is too much. And it's like, if you want to be treated as an equal, I will treat you as an equal, and that means you get no special privileges. None.
I'll be honest, there's so many different months that have so many different awareness days or months, or like at this point it's an oversaturation of, you know, like there's a lot of groups out there that have been far more marginalized, have had way worse happen to them, and they might
Where's
get
Jewish
a day.
History Month?
We don't get a month. I mean, you get what is it?
The
D-Day.
Holocaust Remembrance Day or something.
Holocaust
There's one of
Remembrance
those.
Day.
There's a, but just like like that's another group of people that's obviously been highly oppressed.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys get one? Not that like you
Well, it's
need
like we
one, but
have
if
it,
everyone
like-
else is gonna get it.
Dude, my favorite thing was at my last job, and maybe you guys have experienced the same thing. Once Juneteenth became a federal holiday, you got holiday pay for it, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite part was like they wanted it to be a holiday. It became a holiday, but then they got mad that, well, white people got holiday pay for it. And it's like, I'm sorry, you got what you wanted.
Do you not know how federal holidays work? Is that, you know, I remember
That would be discrimination. I mean, yeah, it's
Oh, you're right.
It's hard.
I'm
It's
sorry.
hard to say that.
Yeah.
But like that would be in the books.
It would be, but you know, reverse racism is not racism, Derek. You bigot. So let's just move on from that. It's the German in you speaking. So one of the things that I noticed, especially when like Black Lives Matter, Pride really started to kick into gear like these last like 5 years. So the emergence of pride pins and pronoun pins, and I don't know if I still have one. I found one on the floor at a hotel in Chicago once, and I kept it, and I don't know if I still have it. It was over here, but I don't see it now. I don't know where it went, but it was a he, they pin, and I picked it up, and I was like, there's no way I just found this on the floor of a random hotel in Chicago. So I did pick it up, and I kept it, and I don't know where it is now. It may be gone, but I thought that was hilarious for whatever reason. It wasn't even June. It was like the middle of November, and it was like, I don't know where this is coming from. It was for a conference, though, so I'm assuming that they were wearing it to the conference. But I will say, like, the first time I was ever asked my pronouns was a very shocking moment for me, and it was offensive in a way of like, do I look like
Do you
that?
not look like a woman?
Kind of like when you're a kid and someone's like, oh, you look like your dad, or oh, you look like your mom, and you're like when you're a kid, you don't understand that means like the facial features. You think it means you look like a man or a woman, and so you're like, excuse me, but then as you grow up, you realize. But when someone just flat out is like, and it was like the way they said it too was like kind of awkward, like, what are your pronouns? And I was like, she, her, and I was trying to be polite, but like at the same time, I was like, I knew I was gonna be done with this job soon, so part of me just didn't care. But now every time I go back to that sort of shop, and thankfully most of the people don't work there anymore, but they hire a very specific group of people, is all I'm gonna say. They gave us stickers for pronouns to put on our name tags, and I'll have to find mine. I think I still have it somewhere. They made me do it. I was like basically told, the only person that didn't have to do it was this one woman who was about 70 or so, who is very conservative, and was like, they couldn't afford to lose her at that point, I guess, because she works so much. So it's kind of like, you know, but for me, I was more indispensable because I wasn't working as often. I was part-time. And so I did it, but I didn't like it. I also wore Pearl Harbor pins, American flag pins. I was bold. I wore on the apron. If I say apron, people will know where I work if, you know, they've been to that store. But the green apron that I wore, at the craft store that I worked at. Named after a
Michael's?
woman. Joanne.
Joanne. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Michelle's.
My mom worked there.
Joanne's, yeah. Go home with glitter all
Yeah,
over you. It's great. But I actually really liked working there because of the employee discount, and like I clearly like I make stuff, so it's like, kind of nice. I got a big discount on things, but it was the environment felt so skewed. And I remember at one point a bunch of girls tried to get this older lady fired because she said something about not being able to keep people's pronouns straight. She made a comment like under her breath one morning after a team meeting. We were like walking away, and she kind of turned to me, and they heard it. She said, how many of them are there, because I'm having a hard time keeping them straight, or something like along the lines of that. What she was trying to say to me was like, I cannot remember every single person's pronouns here. If they look like a girl, I'm going to say she. If they look like a boy, I'm going to say he. That's kind of what she was saying, because she kind of went into it again later. She's like, I just can't tell if they don't, like, if it's not right on their forehead. I'm not going to be able to know, because I can't keep all that in my head with everything else, which is fair. Again, this is like a 70-year-old woman, right? And so I wouldn't expect her to keep all that in her head. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep it straight half the time. And I'm usually pretty good about names and stuff like that. So I really struggled with the way they handled it. They tried to get me to sign a letter that they were going to give to the store manager to try to get her fired. And the store manager called me in, and she was like, I noticed you didn't sign this letter. But they had mentioned that you overheard the comment. And I was like, look, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, you really don't want that lawsuit. Like, you don't want that lawsuit. I like basically said it that way. I was like, look, she's set in her ways. It's not going to change. No one's getting hurt by it. Feelings I get, but like, just don't have them working at the same, don't have them doing like the fabric counter together if you can help it. I'll work with her. I like her. You can put me with her most days if you need to. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
She knows me. I know her. We're good. And like,
Time to address
I'm still
the
friends with her
nose
to
ring
this day,
drama.
this lady. But still works there. So thankfully they never fired her. But it was one of those examples of like that special treatment where it's like, she grew up with this never being a thing, and in the last 10 years it has hit her like a freight train, and she was like already retired at that point, probably like close to retirement at that point, and now you're asking her to change her ways, and you can't expect that to happen. She wasn't mean to anybody. She's a very kind lady, never mean to anybody, never meant to say it, but she was confused, and that's all she was trying to say. And so when she said that to me, I understood that, but they took it as like an attack. They were like, she's attacking us, and I was like, I hate to break it to you, but like a 5', 70-year-old woman is probably not attacking you. Like, oh, with her words, oh, it's so scary. Like, oh, she said mean thing. Like, you guys are literally trying to get her to lose her job. What do you mean she's the mean one here?
Yeah, right. They're starting to sound like the
Totally,
bullies.
They were the mean girls, okay? They were, or the mean thems. I don't know, whatever. But they're the mean people. I don't know what to call them.
That's funny.
The mean individuals at the workplace, because I don't know, it was a whole group. And we got wildly, I mean, we talked about pride, we talked about the pronouns, we kind of got a little off topic, but it stayed within the general realm of like the whole gender argument. I think that this is dangerous to push onto children, because they're going to end up being like these girls who like bullied an elderly coworker into trying to get her fired. You don't want your kids to grow up and be that way. And the way that we're catering to children now is like the rich kids who get spoiled. You shouldn't cater to them, because that's exactly how they're going to behave in the real world. It's going to smack them in the face. They're going to have to work with people they don't like. They're going to have to deal with people they don't like. And when that happens, they're not going to know how to respond. Yes, it will be funny to watch. But no, it will not be funny to be the one that's attacked is like directed at.
Yeah.
You don't bully the 70-year-old woman into losing her job. You don't expect everyone to cater to you, and you sure as hell don't get pissed off when someone says no to you. If someone says no, someone says no. Like, you're the same people that say no means no, which I agree with 100%, but that should apply to every context.
Yeah, nobody's obliged to associate with anybody.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And like I said, there was no like malintent there. She was genuinely confused. It's literally like how, like, if you guys can defend Biden saying that his sister was his wife and that's the love of his life or whatever, he said that one interview where he's like, it's my sister and she's the love of my life. And yeah, if you guys will excuse that behavior, I think you can excuse someone messing up your pronouns one time. There's a lot weirder things to misconstrue, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
So Speaking of people misconstruing things, we're gonna move on to our next topic. Not misconstruing, but more so just being kind of wacky, you know, being a little out there. This next topic I found watching a YouTube video of the channel reaction channel that I like to watch in my downtime. There's a crazy influencer who genuinely believes that they are the reincarnation of a very infamous man in history named Adolf Hitler.
God, what the? Oh, can we curse?
We're far enough in the video, you can curse.
We're far enough in the. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Seriously, my God, you think you're Hitler incarnate? Touch grass, my guy.
Touch grass. Touch grass. Now, I'll have Derek play this video that we have from a TikTok. Someone basically screen recorded it. This person has been removed off all platforms, so I'll give you guys, you know, the props where I need to. Social media platforms, good job on this one. Probably a safe bet where this person talks about you might think I'm a nutter, you might think I'm crazy, and then they say something along the lines of like, oh, they say that, you know, there's a mark on their face, birthmark or whatever. They say that's where they were shot, like that's where they took their own life in their past life or whatever. That's where they did it, and then they say that they are. You're gonna tell me I'm crazy and to take my medications? Well, I've tried tons of medications. I'm like, well, that makes a lot more sense. We get it now. You're crazy. I know, it's just this individual's name.
I don't want this person taken off social media.
No.
I want this person
Yeah,
front and center.
Don't show us how crazy.
I want people. Look at this fucking shit. Do you see this? This is what this identify bullshit gets you.
And it's crazy. So Derek, if you want to pull up that second link with the TikTok link there, and just go ahead and play that video, and let us know when it is done playing, where they explain how in tune they are with their past life and how they have memories.
Alright, it's time to address the nose ring drama. So if you haven't seen my latest video where I made this new nose ring right here, people are essentially calling me every name under the sun because I had the Reichsadler on my jacket. So I need to tell you guys a little something about me. And you can call me crazy, you can call me whatever you'd like, any name under the sun. But I'm very in tune with my past and my past lives and lifetimes that I've lived before this one. My last life just so happened to be a very infamous one. Me offing myself was one of the first memories I had from that lifetime. It came to me when I was 5 in my nightmares. You can see right where I shot myself too. That and just so many other things throughout my life have connected me to my past. And you can go say, oh, go get on your meds again, you nutter. I've been on so many meds and none of them have changed what I saw when I was 5.
So that's Felix Cipher, who believes that they are Hitler reincarnated. If we can pull up that last link, that's there, Derek, under the TikTok link, where you can see the photos of this individual. So they joined TikTok in about 2021, and then they got banned the first time in 2023 because they didn't post stuff for a while about it. Apparently their parents have been contacted, and no one put together, like no one in the family kind of knew about it. I don't know, I guess this person doesn't live at home. They've been tried to be admitted to the hospital. They've left comments. I mean, this is the part that infuriated me the most, is that they left a comment on a Holocaust survivor's video. And I don't remember if they have the caption of this. Yeah, saying something like, oh, sorry, or whatever. And then people were saying, like, your cosplay isn't cute, grow up, like, that's not cute, not cool,
Wait. Hold on, let me understand this correctly.
You can try.
They apologized? They apologized to the Holocaust survivor page?
Yes.
That's not Hitler.
Well, not like it was more of like a oh, sorry, like, sorry about that kind of thing. I'm trying to see, like,
this person just wants attention. Oh my god, why is this shit on my feed?
And so
Oh, I hate algorithms.
this story, I believe, didn't get enough attention because we definitely should be showing people like this. I mean, this is one of those things where we talked earlier about shaming people. This is one of those instances where shame needs to be brought back 120%.
Yeah.
At the very least, get this person help. Get this person in, get them in under a 5150, figure out what the heck is going on with them, treat it, and make it stop. Because this is so delusional. But not only that, how does that... They say in that video, like, when I was 5, I had my first memory of when I offed myself. That's like how it's like, what kind of
You
delusional
were abused as a child.
Yeah,
That's
either
all
you were abused as a either you were abused and it went somehow under the radar, or you've suffered from mental illness your entire life and your parents never noticed, or you never said anything about that. And when I was 5, I mean, I had dreams about, I don't remember, probably weird shit, but like the fact that they took that and then said like, oh, this mark on my head. I was talking to some people about this last night, and I was like telling them, I was like throwing out ideas like, oh, I think this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow when I bring up this one. And this one person's just crying, laughing. He's like, the spot on the head. Like, you knew what I was talking about. He's like, the spot on the head. I was like, the spot on the head. And so we were like, I sent it to the show Pop Culture Crisis, to Brett Dasovic, and was like, here's a good cringe of the day, because they do cringe of the day on that show. I was like, I got a good one if you need one. And he was like, oh, I'm using that tomorrow. Like, immediately using that. I was like, it's just... And then on the show today, Phil Labonte was on and was just absolutely flabbergasted, is the best way to put it. I mean, like, he did not... But kind of like your face, it was just like how does one comprehend? Like, when I said it to you yesterday, and I was like, oh, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, and you went just dead silent. Just dead silent. Because it was just like, what do you say? Right? How do you respond to that? Especially with you...
I'm so fucking tired of this shit. I'm just exhausted with it. I don't want to fucking see it. Don't even treat this person like they're Hitler. They're fucking delusional. That's all I gotta say.
Right. And that's the one part of me that's, a little more compassionate, says, get this person help. This person's severely suffering. This person is in so much distress that they do not know what they're doing. But the other part of me is like, how did it get this bad? How did you allow yourself to cut your hair that way, to then go ahead and get, they made like a little septum piercing that looks like a tiny little mustache, and it's like, how did you go this far into it? Why didn't you think, maybe I should call someone to get help? It's like that movie, and I know that Derek has seen it. I don't know if you've seen it. Guess Who's Back? Where it's a comedy where Hitler all of a sudden comes back to life in modern day, where his bunker used to be, and he's trying to convince people, I'm Hitler, and everyone's like laughing at him, thinking he's like a crazy guy dressing up, and he's like in Berlin, and so they're just making fun of him, like, oh, you're crazy, like, you're not. But you would think, like, in the moment, of course, in that movie, he's supposed to actually be like Hitler coming back to life, and it's like, maybe they saw that movie and just got too many ideas, but like, it's supposed to be satirical, and it's supposed to be making fun of Hitler, which is what it does.
And it's kind of shot in a way like if you've ever seen Borat.
Yeah.
That's the premise of how they shot that movie. So if you
like the mockumentary kind of, where they're like, and I think it's really funny. A lot of Germans found this very funny. A lot of, even the Jewish people found it pretty funny, because it's like, you're making fun of Hitler, right? That's funny. And so when you see stuff like that, that's satirical. That's the one time I would say someone dressing up as Hitler and like running around saying I'm Hitler is funny, because it was for a movie. This person didn't genuinely believe they were Hitler. And I mean, I think it's a hilarious movie. And I definitely recommend it as like a comedy to people. I've seen it quite a few times. I watched it over the pandemic like 3 or 4 times, because it was just really funny. But at the same time, people were saying directly to him, you're crazy. What are you saying? Like, you're insane. And people are saying this, and this person's still defending it, but then they play the whole, I'm a piece of shit, I'm going to kill myself. And it's like, well, no one wants to see you kill yourself. I mean, first of all, if you're really Hitler, you already did it one time. Like, my guy, it didn't work the first time, clearly. So, like, don't do it again, right? Like, it's kind of like, either way, bad idea. I mean, obviously you're a human who is not the reincarnation of Hitler, and you need psychiatric help. At the same time, if you really genuinely believe that, what made you think that if you were to take your own life, you're not just going to come back again in another life? If you believe in reincarnation, wouldn't you want to get help, reform yourself, and get better, so that you stop that, that line there? I mean, there's a reason that the Hitler line ended where it did. There's a reason that members of that family made a pact to never have children despite wanting children, because they did not want that bloodline to continue. There's a reason for that, and this individual is clearly sick and twisted, but it's one of those stories where you think it's fake. You think it's like an Onion or like the Babylon Bee. You're like, oh, okay, an influencer thinks they're Hitler for clout. Then you see it and you're like, wait a damn second here. And you see the picture and you immediately think that person kind of looks like Hitler because of the way that they've like styled their hair and, you know, done the little like septum piercing. Like that would have been my first thought, is like, that crazy leftist looks a little bit like Hitler. That would have been my first thought, is like, gosh, dang, that is weird. But I would never expect that to come out of their mouth. Ever.
Sure.
Which is funny. I had mentioned we should have Jewish History Month. Maybe we should. Because there's people like this. There's Holocaust deniers in the world, which is a whole other topic. Looking at you, Nick Fuentes. We can get... we need a little bit more awareness, I think. I think people are starting to forget and not realize the gravity of the situation. You know, I took a class about, you know, World War II, and I've taken classes where we've talked extensively about what happened in concentration camps. I have spoken to Holocaust survivors.
Right.
My grandpa was in World War II. I know a lot about it. I don't have any, you know, I'm actually kind of ethnically partially German, sorry, but it's okay because we're the good ones. Not this Ubermensch over here, wherever he is, blonde hair, blue eyes. But
Hey.
yeah, like even all of us, like as much as we joke around with each other, we can recognize that like, what? That's not right. That's just messed up. Like, it's like someone walking down, well, maybe, I don't know, walking down modern day, like, Ukraine and being like, I'm Joseph Stalin reincarnated. It's like, what the hell? Like, you killed, like, 2 million people, my guy. Like, I gotta stop saying my guy in, like, these really serious situations. I keep doing it without meaning to, but,
Yeah,
I'm like, my guy, and then I'm like, shoot.
didn't like Joseph Stalin from the Holodomor or the Jews.
Yeah, that's kind of weird that they didn't like
Hitler
him. He's a
from
nice
the
guy.
Holocaust. I mean, it's just...
It'd be like Kim Jong-un walking down the streets of South Korea, being like, what's up, you guys? How's it going? It's like,
Yeah.
what? Why would
I get
you?
it.
Why would and as someone my senior capstone project was on North Korea, so like I know how bad that stuff is, and it's like,
I mean, he
Yeah.
did
He
make
didn't
it to
want that.
Japan, though. He did make it to Japan.
sure,
He went
but
he went to Disney World.
good for him. Well, I guess he only likes Western things when they're good for him and not other people. But I watched a bunch of videos last night too. I couldn't fall asleep. I was watching my cat Mocha. I don't know, some of you guys may have seen her. She got that stupid little tongue sticking out. She's on my social media pages. She got a double ear infection, cut her ear open. It was a whole thing. I had to bring her to the vet this morning. And now she has the cone of shame. So poor thing. But I know, poor girl. She's been sitting in the same spot for 4 hours, just like awake, but just like staring.
About the damn cone.
She doesn't know what to do. When we first put it on, she was running into walls, and she was like, and it was so sad, but I was laughing at the same time because she's already just a really dumb cat as it is. So, I mean, she's already dumb enough, right? So it's just kind of funny that then she starts running into walls, and I'm like, I mean, you do that even without the cone, so it's even funnier with the cone because like you know the wall is there, and you know you just have to move like an inch the other way, but you don't. You just keep trying to move. So not the brightest bulb in the tree, but you know, what can you do? But yeah, that's kind of all the topics we have today. And it was a good one. I think that was a good episode. We had a lot of different topics, a lot of different things to talk about. Chris, thank you so much for filling in for Chris. As confusing as that sounds.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you, stepping up, being able to fill in. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at manofbert, and you can find me on timcast.com. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, Derek, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter
OnlyFans?
at real. Yeah.
Sorry.
Twitter at real Derek Menson. It's the only place you'll be able to find me that I'll interact
Is that
with you.
because you had people impersonating you?
Maybe.
People trying to undercover your other accounts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you can follow me at Olivia Claire, 3 A's in Olivia, 2 E's in Claire, on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, you can find the podcast at, I always mess this one up, DYMT? No, DYMRT. Thank you.
DYRMT.
I like how
On Twitter. I
Bert
like how the
knows
guest
this.
host knows it. I am like trying in my head to say the words and then also just the first letters. But yes, podcast on Twitter. And then, the Stone Age Chris, the old one. He is not on Twitter yet. So if you want to connect with him, just go ahead and follow our podcast for now. We are working on getting him a Twitter. He keeps saying he's going to do it and then he doesn't do it. So you know how boomers are. He's not a boomer, but resident boomer. Closest one. So
you gotta be careful calling him a boomer, because he's only like 10 years older than me. All right?
He's 12 years older. 13 maybe. No, 12 years older than you. It's okay.
It's not that much. We're splitting hairs now at this point. The point is he's like a decade older than me, all right? The same age difference between Mence and me is like me and Chris. So,
Well, he's the closest to a boomer, so naturally he is the boomer.
Okay.
That's my only logic there, because we don't have a boomer. One day we really will have a boomer on the show, and then he won't be a boomer anymore. But, our resident closest to boomer age, Chris, is not on social media right now. But again, he runs our Twitter account mostly. Again, I sign off on everything I post there. So go ahead, please like, subscribe, leave a comment on this video. Feel free to check out some of the clips we post from our episodes during the week when you can't watch this in whole. We try to post content. Please go to our Patreon, and you can just do $1 a month. That's all we're asking. I mean, 1, 3, and 5, if you really want some great content, like pictures of Derek in a dress when he was a child, or pictures of me dressed up as a Samoa cookie, go ahead and go to our Patreon and go ahead and support us. We're going to be releasing content on there.
Yep, and I will also be adding bloopers from editing this. There's always going to be a
There's some
couple
good
bloopers.
ones. There's some really good ones.
So keep your eye out for that if you want to see it.
What bloopers?
Don't worry about it, Chris.
So we'll be posting those on our Patreon. We appreciate any support you guys can give us. If you can't do it monetarily, of course, we appreciate the liking, subscribing, sharing this video with all of your friends and family. And we will see you guys next time on Do You Really Mean That?